So we are still looking at Matthew chapter 8, and you've probably already seen the outline in your bulletin, and you're noticing, wait a minute, why did he wait to use verses 18 to 22? And we already looked at the last part, actually, of Matthew 8. And actually, I purposely did that because I feel like this kind of culminates everything about the things that happened in Matthew chapter 8, about our faith in Jesus Christ, how he can calm the storm, how he has authority even over the evil one. And now we're going to look at a topic that is actually, I was going to say, if you look at your screen, there's nothing there, right, on your screen. But if you look at your outline, you'll see that the title of our message is Following Jesus. And this concerns about the two men who came to Jesus even before he crossed or he got on the boat to cross the lake to go to the other side where he met the demoniacs. Well, this is what Matthew chapter 8, verses 18 to 22 says. Now, when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to depart to the other side of the sea. Remember that, right? He went across the lake to go over to the other side. And as they were crossing, that is when they encountered the storm. Then he said, it says here that a scribe came and said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." What a bold statement, right? I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus said to him, "The foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." And then another of the disciples said to him, "Lord, permit me first to go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me and allow the dead to bury their own dead." You see, if you can see in your text, the title of this section, which of course was not really in the original text, was "The Cost of Following Jesus." So, for the introduction there on your outline, I wrote, "What are you willing to die for?" What is it that you're willing to pay the cost of your life so that you can have it or so that you can see it come true? And I'm sure for many of us, or if not for all of us or most of us here, we would probably say, "My family," right? I would give my life. Oh, no, he's rethinking that. Okay. I would give my life to protect my wife, my children, my grandchildren, right? It's like you probably won't even think twice, right? That when that time comes, you are willing to just do that, right? To just do that. Willing to die for. Well, this text that we just read kind of, in a way, puts a twist to that, right? Puts a twist to that. Because in a way, Jesus is here telling the disciples around him, the crowd around him, what the cost is for following Jesus or what it means to follow Jesus. So the title of our message, as I said, is Following Jesus. What is it like? Or what is the cost of it? Well, that is what we're going to look at from these verses that we have just read. Following Jesus is, point number one, more important than earthly comfort. Following Jesus is more important than earthly comfort. If you will notice in our country right now, comfort seems to be a very, very important thing now, right? That's why even in universities, they have what they call safe places. Like if you feel uncomfortable about what other kids are telling you on campus, there's a safe place that you can go to where you can be comfortable. If you're comfortable about what others are saying, Oh, you have the right to protest against that thing because you're not supposed to feel uncomfortable, right? Of course, it is true that it is good to have a safe place, but a lot of times we put so much emphasis on the comfort that we must have that if people are making you uncomfortable, that is just not right. And the government must have a law against making other people uncomfortable. You probably heard that in California, they passed actually a law in their House and in their state Senate saying that if you are a parent who does not want to affirm your child's gender, if your child is moving towards transgenderism, if he, like for example, is an 8-year old boy who thinks he is a girl, and you as a parent decide, no, I don't agree with you, a child can supposedly go to the authorities and tell on you, and the authorities should have the privilege to take your child out of your custody because you're making the child uncomfortable, not affirming the child's preferred gender. Well, thank goodness the governor vetoed it, which is actually a surprise to many, right? But it was vetoed, so it was not put into law, it was not signed into law. But they actually passed it already. Just recently, I was watching in the news about a group of people who were talking about how uncomfortable some of the words that were said during a debate regarding the transgender. And she said that it just made me so uncomfortable. Earthly comfort is something that people are actually willing to die for, right? To have all the comfort of this world. Well, Jesus says, when you follow me, I am more important than earthly comfort. There are no guarantees of a roof over your head, even. I remember the first time Sandy came to the Philippines. This was before we got married. Less than a year, actually, before we got married. It was like July of 1985. We got married May of 1986. But we all decided, me and her parents decided maybe it would be good for her to see the Philippines first. Of course, I've told her many things about it, showed her pictures about the Philippines, but I said, but it's different once you're there. I said, it's hot all the time. It's like 90% humidity. Yeah, it's a sweat bath every day. It's so polluted. At the end of the day, you have black boogies. At the end of the day, that's a joke we make because of the pollution. It's just bad. And so, and I said, I told her every day that we were dating, I'm going back to the Philippines. I hope that you're ready for it. And so I said, well, maybe you should go. So she went there. And of course, we didn't have air conditioning at home. And the heat was getting to her. So my mom felt so sorry for her. She would get a bucket of water and put ice in it with a washcloth. And Sandy would sit outside with the fan blowing on her. She was so red. And she would dip the washcloth in the ice water and just wipe herself. And my mom said, I don't think she's going to make it here. I said, oh, she will. She'll be fine. Don't worry. And my mom said, are you okay? She said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So red and sweaty, and she said, I'm okay. I'm fine. So she was in the Philippines for 2 weeks and flew back to the U.S. And when we got to the U.S., and I said, "Well, what do you think?" She said, It's definitely different." She said different. She said, "The moment I stepped out of the airplane, I felt that heat like hit you in the face. Like, what was that?" And so we got married in 86 and went back to the Philippines October of 86 and lived there for the next 22 years without the comforts. And like I said, I felt so sorry for her, but she made a lot of sacrifices for that, knowing that it was God's will for her to be used by God there in the Philippines. You see, when you make a decision to follow Christ, there are no guarantees of earthly comfort. You may lose all the comfort, actually, that this world offers. But one thing is for sure, a relationship with Jesus is more important than anything that the world offers. Anything that the world offers. That is what Jesus is trying to tell his disciples. The foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. If you choose to follow me, Jesus is saying, there are no guarantees of earthly comfort. Another thing that Jesus wants us to see from this passage is that following Jesus is more important than human relationships. It's more important than human relationships. Jesus even says in Mark chapter 10 that if you compare your relationship to him, it's almost as if like you hate other relationships compared to your relationship to him. It's not that he's telling us to hate the people we are in a relationship with. No, he's just saying that his is on another level that we don't even should compare because it's on another level. That our relationship with him is more important than our relationship with the person that we are closest to. A lady in the Philippines a couple of years ago was messaging me on Messenger, and she was taking a screenshot of her communication with her son, who has declared himself a gay person. And her son wanted her to walk him, actually, because he was getting married to another male person. And when she refused to, her son said all kinds of things to her. And she said, "Pastor Tito, what can I do? What should I do? What should I say?" And I reminded her that her relationship to Christ is more important than her relationship to her son. And she said, "And that's true." And so she texted him once again and said that, "I love you so much, my son, but I love God more than I love you. And I cannot celebrate something that I know my God would not celebrate. And that is your marriage to another man." In the society we're living in now, this is something that many of us, if not most of us or all of us, are probably faced with now. Because when we do make a decision to follow Jesus Christ and his will, it could mean that we might lose a loved one, not because of death, but maybe because we simply do not agree with the lifestyle that they are choosing to live. Because our decision to follow Christ comes before any relationship that we have here on earth. It's a very difficult decision to make, but something that we all will have to make at one point. And we hope and pray that from this verse we will see that Jesus is telling us that following him is more important than all human relationships. The only relationship that is eternal is our relationship with Jesus Christ. And it is that same relationship that could make our relationship with the people that we are in a relationship with here on earth eternal also. Outside of our relationship with Jesus Christ, our relationship with the people around us here on earth cannot become eternal. But in Christ, our relationship continues with the people that we love here if they also choose to follow Jesus Christ. And that makes our relationship with them also eternal. That is why following Jesus is more important than any human relationship. The only relationship that takes earthly relationship to eternal, glorious relationship is our relationship with Jesus Christ here on earth. There is no other relationship that can do that. Again, I have to make it clear that Jesus is not telling us to not develop relationships with the people here on earth or to not love people here on earth. But he's just telling us that our relationship with him is more important than our human relationships. Point number 3, Jesus is here telling us that following him is more important than all of our earthly responsibilities. This man came to him and said, "Let me bury my father first." And there are many interpretations regarding this. Some are saying that maybe the father did die, and part of our responsibility to our parents is to bury our parents. But others are saying that in the culture that they were in, part of the responsibility you have in order for you to receive inheritance is to be there during the time when your father is buried. So we don't know exactly why this has become very Very important. And of course, even to us, this is very important. I remember when my mother, before my mother passed away, 2013, I didn't know if I would have enough resources to be able to go to the Philippines, since just several months or a few, not even a year before that, I was already in the Philippines. And so I didn't know. Of course, I praise and thank God for my church family here, who actually provided for me to buy a plane ticket to go to the Philippines to be with my mom before she passed away. But I was already wondering, it's like, should I go or not? If the Lord provides for the money, then I will go. But if not, I don't know if I will go into debt for it. But I feel like I cannot just not do anything. And the Lord did provide so that I can go. But thinking back, I would say I would have felt so bad to not be able to do that. And so I praise God that He gave me the opportunity to be there a week before she passed away, and was able to spend time with her and care for her for that last week. Of course, just like any child who's lost a parent, you wish that you could have done more, right? That's what we wish. But I just praise and thank God for the privilege I had for a week. And so here's the issue here, coming to Jesus and saying, well, I want to follow you, Lord, but let me go first and bury my father. It's a responsibility that I have to my parents. And then Jesus answered and said, follow me and allow the dead to bury their own dead. It seems so harsh, doesn't it? It sounded harsh, as if Jesus did not care about our relationship and our responsibilities to the people we are in a relationship with. But I believe simply Jesus is saying that following him is more important than all of our earthly relationship, even our relationship to the closest people in our lives. That when it comes to making a decision as to which one comes first, Jesus is saying, following me becomes more important. Of course, part of these responsibilities that we have here on earth are our jobs, responsibility to the community, responsibility to the family, responsibility to other people. Which one comes first? And it's hard to decipher exactly how they are labeled, right? But I believe what Jesus is, like I said, simply saying is that following him is more important than anything in this world, because he is our God, he is our Redeemer, and he is our provider. He must become our priority in life, is what he's saying. That our mindset must be focused on that one thing, and that is to put him first in our lives. And that is why when he was asked once, which of the commandments is more important to God than anything? And he said, it's to love God above all. That is number one. To love God above all else. And this simply is a support to that very statement that Jesus already made. So you may lose your job as a result of following Jesus. This happens a lot especially in countries where Christianity is banned. There are a lot of Christians who lose their job simply because they made a decision to follow Jesus Christ. I remember we have a church member in the Philippines who was an engineer working for uh, the Department of Public Highways in the Philippines. One of the most corrupt departments in the Philippines. But before he was a Christian, his boss would tell him when there are biddings going on for a specific project of the government that they do take under the table bids. It's supposed to be public, you know. And someone would make a bid, but then, of course, those who would give under the table money for them, then they will rig the bidding. And he said it didn't bother him at all, especially because after the bidding, everyone in the office would, you know, make a big chunk of money from the money they would receive from the contractor who won the bid, right? It's probably happening in this country too. We just don't know, right? But anyway, it was so obvious there that, you know, they talk about it as if it was nothing. Well, he became a follower of Jesus Christ. And then there was a bidding. And he was sent by his boss. And of course, he wasn't even thinking about it. But once he got there and had the bidding, he remembered what happens during that time. And so he called his boss and he said, Boss, I can't do this anymore. He said, What do you mean you can't do it? I just can't. He said, I'm a follower of Christ now. And this is not something that he would want me to do. Well, you know what happened? He was fired. Boss says, We can't lose this money. So he was fired. He later on started his own contracting company, but lost his job. But he realizes that following Jesus is more important than all of our earthly responsibilities. The only responsibility that transcends this life is following Jesus. It's the only responsibility that goes beyond this life. It is the only one that will make our earthly responsibilities have eternal value. Because of our relationship with Christ, even the things that we have here on earth and that we do here on earth can actually have eternal value if we do it for the glory of Jesus Christ. There was a man named Jim Elliot. He was a man who was a follower of Jesus Christ who realized that there was a group of people in the Amazon who did not know about Jesus Christ at all. And so he made a serious study about this group of people in the Amazon who has not heard of Jesus Christ. But the problem was this group of people, they were headhunters. Not that they're looking for jobs for you, okay? Because that's what we call people who look for jobs for us now, headhunters. Well, no, these are literally headhunters. They kill people who come into their community. And Jim Elliot knew that for a fact. And so he and another friend, actually husband and wife friend, went there. And of course, if you have heard the story about Jim Elliot, he was killed by a headhunter. They all went back to the US, but his wife, Elizabeth, made a decision that she would go back and continue the mission. She actually later on converted the very person who killed her husband. And the entire tribe became followers of Jesus Christ. Jim Elliot was quoted, He is no fool who gives away what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And of course, He lived by that principle in following Jesus Christ. He knew that only in Christ could we gain things that we could never lose. So giving up things that are earthly should not be an issue if we realize how important following Jesus is.